Hello, this is Debbie
Hello.
McAllister, and I'm on Light Up Your Worth. And today I have a really amazing lady that I want you to meet. And so, welcome, Christine Miura. I am so excited that you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here too.
Yeah, we were just chatting. I'm having some technical stuff with the camera going back and forth. So if you guys will please give us some compassion and grace with that changing around. But I am so excited to have her on. And why is that? Is that I am highlighting women who have overcome some pretty amazing stuff in their life. And through that journey, they have found some spiritual tools, and the podcast is all really about highlighting these amazing women who I call my friends. And so I would like to introduce you to her. And Christine, why don't you start us and share a little bit about your story?
Okay, well, I am 57 and was previously married. My husband passed away when I was 43, and I've raised two boys from 8 and 10 by myself, and now they're both in college, and one is finishing up pretty soon. So I have been on my sojourn by my solo self. And there's been a great amount of depth and growth and healing that's occurred. So he's been gone for almost 14 years. And I'm just not even the same person I was when we were married.
Yeah, well, I'm really sorry to hear about the loss of your husband. That I can't even imagine having found that perfect person just for you and building a life and bringing in two incredible boys and then having to go through that process of losing him, and then how do you build your life after that? So what did you do? I mean, how did you get
Well,
through that?
I well, we had a fabulous life together. He was an incredible spiritual being. You know, he was so kind and thoughtful, and it was always about his family. It was me and the kids before himself, and super smart and ambitious. And yet he had the demeanor of a gentleman and just always thinking about others first. And I am so blessed that he chose to love me and that I chose to love him because my life had a completely different trajectory than it would have had I not. And he was just such an amazing example of a male for my two boys. So to lose him, to find out that he had pancreatic cancer um, so suddenly and without any really indication, excuse me, that he was so sick, it was a shock and an unexpected surprise. But in the process of his transition, we he got to experience um, that God knows best for him. He got to have his faith um, in God and understand like he was going to a better place. And for me to witness that, um, I hope that I have that kind of strength and faith when my time comes because he faced it like um, gosh, I don't, I you know, with there was fear, but there wasn't fear. There was like peace in him knowing that he was going to transition out. And so watching him go through his process for me was um, I couldn't describe it at the time, but I think now it showed me that the relationship that he's strong, that it never failed him. And going through this process and my own experiences that I've had, I know that my life is divinely led. And I know that, you know, Source is always bringing me to the right place, to the right people, to the right experience. And I don't question anymore. I just know that I am taken care of. by source, but also by him. He's my angel,
Mm-hmm.
and Bruce takes me out of harm's way. Like when there are people in my life that aren't good for me, they just disappear. Like they no longer exist. They're not on my pathway. It's like one day they're here, and then the next day it's like, yeah, I gotta go, bye. And so I don't look up breakups with different people I've met since him. I don't look at it as a failure. I look at it as, hey, you're not good enough. You're not good enough to be in her life. And Source and Bruce are taking them out because you don't deserve somebody as amazing as she is. So, um, and then I think uh, the one thing for me, I had this experience when he was dying and then after he died. So, do you want me to tell you those stories?
Yeah,
Because
yeah, let's hear one of them. Yeah.
so the doctor basically said he's gonna pass. There's nothing that we can really do to help him any longer. And from the time that we found out he was sick till his passing, it was only 5.5 months. So
Wow.
we had built a house, and I was sitting in the dining room, and I'm looking at this beautiful house that we built, and I go to the kitchen and I say, "Why, God? Why are you taking him? The boys need him. If anybody, it should be me. I should be the one that's going because he needs to stay here to be an example of being a man." And I hear a voice, and I hear, well, Christine, your boys need you as the full expression of life. And if you were to leave early, Bruce wouldn't be able to survive without you. The pain of losing you would be so great. And I told him in hospice, like I had heard this, and he said, no, no, if anyone's going to leave, it's going to be me because I'm an okay dad, but you're a great mom and our boys need you. And it just, when he said it, it just like landed on me so deeply. They hear this man is leaving and exiting this plane, and yet he can see me, and he can speak his truth from his perspective, and it just landed on my heart so big.
Oh, it just
So
landed
that
on
was
my heart. Oh my gosh. I'm like, I should have brought tissue. I mean, what a message to not only receive it, but to hear it.
and then to have him validate it, that was
Yes.
like huge. Oh yeah, and the other thing that I heard Thor say to me was, um, you will be the messenger of Bruce's story. You will share his story to others so that they will understand, that this process of transition and dying, and also, just his faith in God. So,
It's very powerful. And here we are. You're sharing Bruce's story with me, who's already tearing up because I can feel that as an empath and feeling connected to you about the the type of pain that would happen after that experience. I mean, how kind is it for somebody as they're leaving the planet to be able to validate that you're going to be okay?
yeah, I mean, there are so many little stories, but um, the gift he gave me was like, don't, if you meet somebody, I want you to thrive. I want you, if you want to get married again or you're wanting to be with somebody, you go ahead and do that. Don't hold on to, what we have. Um, and so it was probably, he died in May of 2008. And I think it was October. And I woke up this one morning and I wasn't sleeping in the master bedroom. I was sleeping in another room in another bed because it was just so painful to be in that space. And I woke up and we had laid a floor in our new house of oh, I can't remember the stone, but anyway, we had laid that as the center, and then on the edge we had surrounded it by wood flooring. So it was like it was a concrete rug sort of, right? And so I'm sitting, oh, travertine. I was sitting on the travertine, and I woke up this one morning with this feeling, and I started to cry sitting on the floor that we had laid together. And he came and he said to me, Christine, don't cry. You gave me the best 13 years of my life. You gave me a family. You gave me these two boys. Like, rejoice in what we created together, but don't think about what we don't get. Think, just think about all the things that we've experienced, but don't think about what doesn't get to come, because, you'll get stuck. And I just remember going, okay, like, I don't know how I'm gonna do that, because, it's only like 5 months from the time that we had last seen each other. But I know that he wanted me to thrive. Like, he wouldn't want me to stay stuck. He wouldn't want me to keep looking back. He wouldn't want me to be attached to the life that we had. And while I miss that, I miss my family. I miss the way that we were, you know, because of the relationship that we had both built with our boys. My focus has really been about them growing up and being good human beings, being having compassion, um, and being generous and being open, and not get stuck in their dad dying. So I I have really focused on them growing up to be full expressive humans. So that's what I focused on until 2016, when they both, graduating from high school and then going into college. So yeah. But the one story I did want to tell you, is I woke up, I think it was like 3 months after he died. And I woke up and the grief was just so painful. And I fell to the floor, and I started crying uncontrollably, and that ugly cry where your tears are just coming down effusing, and your nose is running, and you're you know and and I'm on the floor, and I hear God whisper in my ear and say to me, Christine, do you believe you're going to feel love and joy again? And I said, yeah, I do, but there's this anvil on my chest, and I got to get my kids to swimming, and I just need to not feel so much pain, because I know why people die really close together, because the level of pain and suffering is so great. And I only had him for 13 years, our marriage, but I can't imagine being with somebody for 30, 40, 50 years and then they leave the planet. It just, yeah, you're just at a loss.
Yeah. And,
And
and mhm.
anyway, just let's finish that story. So, like, literally, like a minute later, I didn't feel the suffering. I picked myself up. I walked down the hall. I got my kids, and we went swimming. And for the rest of that day, I didn't have that deep um, pain that I've been walking around with since he died. And I remember that day feeling relief, like, this is odd, But I did. I asked, please help me today. I can't function. It was just so overwhelming to wake up.
Yeah.
So
What a message where you feel love and joy. And the Christine that I've met is full of love and joy. I mean,
oh, thank you.
she's a pickleball champion. She's she is the person who is bringing a group of people together, um, and really trying to make sure everybody feels connected and welcomed and seen. And that's who I see. So between that moment of having God speak into you and help you through that day to who you are now, how did you get through that? Did you discover, uh, or what discovery did you find about yourself in that journey? Or
Well, a couple things, in grief. Western medicine always wants to medicate you. And there was a point where, I was fairly depressed. And I went to the Western doctor and he gave me some medicine. And the next thing I know, I can't feel anything. I can only feel, this range instead of this big range. And I took it for 2 days and then I got off of it. So one of the things I learned is, in grief, we need to sit with it. We need, like when it's so unbearable, to like literally sit on the ground or sit on a chair and let those emotions roll through you. Because when we distract ourselves, when we go shopping or eat food or, you know, maybe exercise too much or whatever that is, it's distracting us from processing the emotion. So one of the things I learned was to sit down and just to feel it. And if I had to cry, I would cry because that was how the emotion was going to go through my physical body. And that's not something that people teach you. And I feel like I was guided, in this process too, for my own healing. So that's one. And two, um, one of the greatest, hardest lessons in life is when we're attached to something, right? And so I got to watch Bruce have a level of acceptance about the attachment to life. And instead, he accepted the fact that he was going to transition and found the beauty in that experience of him transitioning out. And I think my personal ability to have acceptance, like there was nothing I could do, you know, and the more that I said it's just not fair, it's just not fair, right? It made it worse. So if I could have the acceptance that he was going to be in God's grace and that he was going on to do something that was he was being called to do because God needed him, then I was okay. And I was okay because, having it, giving birth to someone and leaving this planet, like we're all going to do it. It's the story that we make about it and the attachment we have to it, how it's unfair and unjust and why did this happen to me? That just keeps you in a place of being a victim. But if you understand the acceptance that this life was a gift and the gift that he gave to me and my kids and his um, imprint on us as spiritual beings, like it's huge because he loved deeply and he loved openly and he was very clear that, we were the most important people in his life. So by accepting that really early on and not having that other conversation, it got me through so much. And it really brought me into this space that I know that my life is um, led by God. Like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I'm exactly meeting the people I'm supposed to be. I'm exiting situations I'm not supposed to be in. That when I understand that my life, my divinity is greater than me, I I don't know, I just have a sense of peace and security and knowingness. So which leads me to, understanding, like I've practiced Ayurveda for since I was 23 years old. And one of the things about the teachings is, they're 5,000 years old, A, and B, they give you the key and access to ourselves. And so much of the work on the planet right now is really about understanding self-responsibility, your creation of what your life, oh, sorry, lost my ear, my, but it's your self-responsibility to creating the life that you want, like it's not handed to you. And so Ayurveda does that. It has this expression of knowing your physical nature. It can explain to you, your behaviors and your thought processes, and you can understand how you've shown up in the world.
Yeah.
So it's given me so much insight to myself and also to my friends and to my clients that I've worked with and I've counseled. It's like the first stepping stone into understanding um, what we were born into. I call it being an expression of nature.
Hmm.
And so it all leads from the doshas. And then, your doshas are your physical constitution of your energetic blueprint of your body. And once you understand your blueprint, um, I'm sure it will relieve so much of things that you've always doubted about yourself or you were concerned about, or maybe somebody commented like, oh, sit down, you're too busy, or oh my gosh, you're so ambitious. Like that's a bad word for women, right? Um, and or oh my gosh, you're just so sensitive. Why do you have to be so sensitive all the time? Those words can really wound us as we're growing or as we are now. And when you understand that nature designed you exactly perfect and you show up in the world exactly perfect, then you stop apologizing, you stop saying I'm sorry, you stop making excuses, you stop playing small, because now you go, hey, like it, love it, oh well, I can't help but be me.
So if somebody isn't familiar with Ayurveda, how could you describe it in just a couple sentences? If they've never heard of it, um, how
Okay.
how could you describe it? What type of what is it?
So So Ayurveda is a science that comes from India. It's 5,000 years old. It's called the science of life. It has many branches to it. Um, but Ayurveda is really from the Vedic text, and it explains um, your constitution, someone's physiology. If in Chinese medicine they take your pulses, well, in Ayurveda they also do. And actually, Chinese medicine is a derivative of Ayurveda, but we take your pulses. Ayurvedic doctors and counselors can um, see or hear in your pulse what may or may not be working in your body physically, like in Chinese meridians. I'm sure people have know about that. Ayurveda doesn't have meridians. We actually feel the pulse and we can understand the systems and the organs that may be functioning or not functioning properly. And then when you go into the physiological aspect of that, you see an Ayurvedic doctor so that they can give you the right diet and herbs to take to bring it back online. They can also tell the progression of disease, if the word disease, because your pulses will have a certain fluidity to them that they're used to, but it also shows when you're sick, your pulses will show up anemic, and an Ayurvedic doctor can do that.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. I know when we had talked, you had had me take a test, and
Right.
so there is three doshas. Am I pronouncing that right? Doshas. Um, and
Hold on, I'm having a malfunction. Hold on. Can you test?
I can still hear you.
Okay. I can barely hear you. I don't understand what's happening to my earphones, but um anyway, taking a test, yes.
Hmm. So you take a test, and it asks various questions, and then you get the results. And so there's the three doshas.
Yeah, they're called doshas.
And what are those doshas? What are they? What are
Oh,
they
well,
for?
your doshas are the energetic um, frequency that runs through your body.
Mhm.
And an Ayurvedic doctor can feel them. But when we can't do that, we take a test, which has certain predilections for different doshas. So one is called vata, the other one's called pitta, and the other one's called kapha. Now you can be one mono dosha, just one. Most likely you're two, or you can be rare and have all three be equal. We all have these in our bodies, but um, they're the constitution. Your constitution is more likely to be one or two, and by answering the test, it actually weights how that would show up for you. And for you, you're very rare. You're like in the 3% of people who are tridoshic.
Yeah, that
So
was
you
pretty
you get three
surprising.
times. you get 3 times the benefits,
Yeah.
and you also get triple the imbalances. So it can be challenging depending on the weather and the season and where you live. And there's a lot of things that can either support you or put you out of balance and frustrate you.
Mhm. Yeah, it was really interesting when you went through it with me because understanding that, I was then able to connect it with, um, oh, okay, this is my more driven side, and then this is my more intuitive side, and ideas of when I'm out of balance or when I know I need to go and take a look at my own behavior. Um, that it was just super helpful to be able to understand that, and it would have been very helpful in other environments to have known some of that stuff about myself. It
Right.
probably
Well,
could have influenced some decisions, right, in my life.
right. I mean, I think the thing about understanding your constitution, your doshas, is it gives you a segue into how you show up in the world and how you perceive the world. And if you understood somebody else's doshas, like if you were in relationship or you have a child or somebody, a coworker that you work with, by understanding each other's constitutions, there's a lot more space for communication and not so much about, oh, why is that person being like that? Triggering you into being an upset. When you understand how you both are designed by nature, how you show up, um, you can say, oh, that's just how she is, and really understand, like, oh, that's how she is, right? So, for example, I'm Pitta Kapha, and my son is lots of Pitta and a little Kapha. And so his Pitta, him being so Pitta, triggers me because like Sammy's like probably like 70 to 80% Pitta and then 20% Kapha. I'm like um 60% Pitta and 30% Kapha and then 10% Vata. So um Sammy's always triggering me. It's because, he's my reflection, he's my biggest teacher. But when he's out of balance, it really just gets me like, oh, why does he have to be like that? And then I remember, oh yeah, he's Pitta. He's like you, Christine. So there's also that whole mirror conversation that happens with our family members.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
that it,
that's
it it allows me not to get angry with him, knowing like, oh, that's his nature. He's not trying to upset me. He's not trying to be rude and abrupt. That's just how he shows up. He sometimes when he's out of balance, he's a little bit prickly, you know.
so with understanding, if somebody hasn't figured out what their doshas are, then the benefits of it really are pretty profound of being able to understand how to walk through challenges. I mean, knowing it up front instead of being able to let yourself go down that rabbit hole, you're able to then realize that they're out of balance, and maybe you can be part of them understanding that they're out of balance and
Right. Well, in
how
a
to
in
work
a
on that.
family setting, it's really powerful because how we listen to people and how we speak to them is really important. So let's say somebody who's very Kaphic they're very sensitive. They're kind and loving and generous people. And Pitta people are very abrupt, and when they're out of balance, they can be really bossy and off-putting and sort of condescending in their language. So when you put those two people together in a room, someone's not getting heard or seen, needing that acknowledgement, and the other one is just racing through life going, "Yep, this is what I'm doing, okay," and they have no idea that they've disenfranchised this person who is sensitive, kind, and loving. Like they need to be acknowledged, like, "Oh, you look pretty today," or, "Wow, that was really nice. Thank you for being so thoughtful." Just by changing our languaging can make a huge difference in how the harmony in the household happens. So, and then also Pitta people like myself um, don't really realize that there's different ways to communicate because we're about getting stuff done. We're on task. We're like that type A personality. And our society in America rewards us for that. It rewards us to be that highly productive person. And who cares? You don't have a team behind you as long as you get the result done. And that's really how Pitta people are. So they don't get anybody to say, hold on a second, it's great you're like this, but we're like this. And we need it. And of course, a kapha person would never even think of saying that because they feel like everybody thinks and acts like them. And so they're waiting. They're waiting for that other person to come over and go, I just want to acknowledge you for the fabulous, fantastic, job you just did, because that's what they would do. You see? So when we don't understand our natures and how we show up in expression to each other, we get a lot of angst and a lot of disharmony and possibly hurt feelings and misunderstanding.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah, it's really helpful.
as you are working with people, who primarily is drawn to work with you, and what do they like to
People
work on
um
with this?
people are drawn to work with me who are looking for that have self-awareness. They want to know more about themselves. They might be those people that take the disc test or the enneagram or the center of other things that are out there. um but I think what makes Ayurveda so different is it's not an intellectual process, right? This is an energetic blueprint that runs through your body and that speaks thousands and thousands of years of wisdom. And it's not a system that just got made up to explain you. And the thing about this is the really important thing. When you understand your doshic makeup, you get to find food and herbs that align you instead of your body fighting against them and trying to, absorb them and, creating inflammation because it doesn't really like it. You get to eat food where, you know, everything is in alignment. It's good for you. There's a vibration that's so different when you're eating food that your body really likes. And you also get to learn like what your body doesn't like. Like, oh, this is really aggravating my belly, or this is making me spacey, or I don't feel so good after eating this. You start to learn all of that because you have a framework that comes from this wisdom, and it's all lined out. The thing about Ayurveda is it's super overwhelming because there's so much knowledge, so much information. I remember when I first learned it, I felt like I was under a fire hose. It was just like so much. And the sad part about it is I didn't do it. I didn't do it well. I wasn't, I really adopted this more in my life after I had a health scare. And I reopened my books and I started reading more and I'm like, oh wow, wow, okay, now I'm sick. I'm motivated. I'm really motivated. And it was there for me the whole time and I didn't have to get sick. And in fact, if I had been practicing all those years, I probably wouldn't have been as sick. The upside is I went and saw my doctor and my Ayurvedic doctor, and she said, I'm so glad you came in now because it's, the illness, you are sick, but the illness is in the gap. We call it the dhatus. It's from the nervous system to the organ or the system that in mine was diabetes. And so she's like, I'm glad you came in now because now we can reel that back. We can reverse it because it hasn't landed in your tissues, hasn't taken hold. And I worked with her, um, gosh, for about 8 months, 9 months, and I went in one day, and she took my pulse. She's like, "What have you been doing?" And I said, "Oh, I've been playing a lot of pickleball, and happy and community and eating well and using guidelines." And she's like, "Your pulse has never been this clear, and whatever you're doing, it's working. And I don't see any signs of disease. I don't feel any disease in your pulse." So
Wow, what powerful news to get, huh? From following the knowledge that you already had and just honoring that.
Oh, oh, my earphones. I'm sorry. I can't hear you. So, can I just pause for 1 sec? I'm gonna stick these back.